Hello everyone, my name is Jacob Heringman, and I'm a player of the Renaissance lute, the 16th century lute. And I just wanted to talk to you briefly about a principle that's well known to Alexander people and perhaps less well known to lute players, though it has wide application for lute players. This is specifically the use of gravity and the idea of doing and allowing in playing passage work in the right hand on the Renaissance lute. A quick bit of history. The Renaissance lute has its origins in the Middle Ages when it came to Europe via the Moorish occupation of Spain. At that time, the Arabic lute was played with a plectrum. So imagine a plectrum held perhaps between the thumb and forefinger, and the arm doing the movement when passage work is being played. Well, towards the end of the 15th century or the beginning of the 16th, they got rid of the plectrum, adapting the instrument to polyphonic playing with the fingertips. At that time, though, they retained an important vestige of the old medieval plectrum technique, which is that they played passage work with the thumb and the index finger. The thumb for the downstroke, the index for the upstroke. If you know about Renaissance music, you'll know about the importance of strong and weak beats. Well, the strong beat is always done with the thumb, the weak beat is always done with the index finger. So the swinging of the arm involves clearly a certain amount of using gravity to let the arm fall. That principle of doing and allowing is very useful for instrumentalists, I think, whether they know about the Alexander technique or not. Of course, to step back for a minute from the lute, the very idea of allowing is so very central to the Alexander technique. Because, of course, if I allow the neck to be free, so the head can go forward and up, I am not doing anything, I am thinking a thought and allowing the thing to happen. That's such an important distinction. Similarly, if I raise an arm, that is an active movement or a doing. If I let the arm fall completely freely, that's a passive movement or an allowing. Now clearly, when you're playing passage work on the lute, it's a little more complicated than that, because if I play a string and let the arm fall completely, it ends up somewhere other than where I need it to be in order to play. So it's a controlled fall, which introduces the idea of doing, which is raising the arm, and a blend of doing and allowing involved in letting the arm fall. Now, as we know, it's very easy to, as it were, ignore gravity, tighten up the shoulder, tighten up the elbow, tighten up the wrist, and as it were, completely control the fall without employing gravity, our helper, at all. Now on the lute that results in a kind of stiffness and a pushing through and a not very attractive sound. If on the other hand I use gravity as much as I can, control it as much as I must, I get that nice freedom of movement by unlocking the elbow, and of course there's action in the shoulder too for this stroke. And I get that characteristic, slightly swinging articulation that is so important in Renaissance music. It's not absolutely even or machine gun-like, it's free and alive and rather vocal and rather liquid when it's done well. And that's to do with using gravity and allowing the arm to fall. I think this idea of allowing where possible and doing only where necessary has widespread application in any specialized task at all, whether it's playing an instrument or anything else. If we make use of gravity as our helper where we can, in other words, allow where we can and do only where we must, we end up with a very efficient way of working, an extremely mechanically efficient way of working, minimum effort, minimum expenditure of energy, and one would hope a maximally efficient result, whether it's the music or anything else that we're doing. This idea has widespread application. It works, for example, in the left hand too. If I allow the arm to hang freely from the neck of the instrument, from the fingertips, that is, then the arm will be in a sensible place and the wrist will be relatively straight for playing. And I will avoid doing things like that lute players do, and other unnecessary movements, or even that. It's just hanging. I'm connected from fingers to elbow, and elbow, of course, into shoulder and back. And how do we learn as musicians to employ gravity and allow as much as we can and do as little as we can? Well, the best way, of course, is to have a course of Alexander technique lessons, work on ourselves first, and the instrument secondarily. But I hope this way of thinking about lute technique and instrumental technique generally is of some use, and thank you for listening.